Fox 2 presents Hancock and Kelly.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to Hancock and Kelly on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right is John Hancock.
Top of the morning.
On the left, Michael Kelly.
Happy Sunday.
And I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda, St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer has an idea for using at least part of the Rams NFL settlement jackpot, tornado relief in St. Louis. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker for president in 2028. A U.S. Senator calls that a no-brainer. Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe cutting deals to get big wins in the special session of the Missouri legislature. And our quote of the week, such ingratitude. Donald Trump meets his match on social media, and it's Elon Musk. Also, Illinois Democrats push for a $1.50 delivery tax on everything from Amazon to DoorDash. Plus, from a Navy ship to Pride Month, Republicans work to undo hallmarks of LGBTQ. But we begin with St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer letting the cat out of the bag about what to do with at least part of the close to $277 million from the Rams NFL legal settlement.
There'll be other pots of money that we have identified that we'll be discussing in the days ahead. When it comes to Rams funds, you'll see, I believe, a proposal this week going through the Board of Aldermen that should get us through the summer.
That proposal was made Friday, introduced at the Board of Aldermen meeting to put $30 million from the NFL settlement into a St. Louis Tornado Recovery Fund to stabilize impacted households, to keep tornado victims from ending up being homeless, and to repair tornado-damaged public infrastructure. Alderman Rasheen Aldridge, the bill's sponsor, says the $30 million is from interest accrued over the 3+ years since the settlement was announced. It will not come out of the principal amount that the city received in the 2021 legal settlement over Rams owner Stan Kroenke moving his NFL team from St. Louis back to Los Angeles. John, is that what this money is meant for?
Well, it certainly is a proper use of it. It's a far better use than using it to turn the workhouse into a museum. That's what the last crew wanted to do. And, and it's the interest. It's one-time money for a one-time purpose, so it checks all the boxes for an appropriate use of money. And I think it's rather creative to use just the interest of that principle and use it because there are real needs in this city. And $30 million is not chump change.
It's not, but it's going to take a lot more than
Sure.
$30 million to rebuild that area of North St. Louis. Is $30 million enough? Is it right to take the $30 million, and should it even go further?
Well, I don't think it was an original purpose of this money, but it makes sense to use this money. It's $30 million of interest that was there. It's not going to be enough, but it's a great start. And I think that's what's most encouraging about what we're seeing is we're seeing government act quickly and start to put these things in place. And I think this is a part of a larger walk we're going to be doing.
And if I'm reading the mayor right, this is sort of a bridge.
Right.
Until we hear from FEMA.
And I got to be honest, I did not expect much out of Kara Spencer. I thought she'd be better than what we had. But I've been impressed with her leadership. This crisis coming right at the beginning of her term. I think she's been engaged, involved, active, and this kind of action is positive as well. I really have been impressed.
Even with the failure of the 911 siren.
I don't put that on her. That's on whoever was supposed to pull the button.
Crisis forces you to really have some organization and leadership. And boy, she has delivered at a time when, like you said, parts of it were still fractured. She hadn't even gotten an opportunity to explore where the bathrooms were. And now she finds herself running government. I think it's a big step forward from where we were.
City's rallying behind her, wouldn't you say?
I think so.
Mm-hmm. And beyond the city.
Yep.
To the state, the special session of the Missouri legislature racks up huge wins for Republican Governor Mike Kehoe, has become an ally of Mayor Spencer in St. Louis. The state Senate advances his key proposals of $100 million in relief for tornado and flooding victims, plus stadium deals to keep the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals from moving across the border into Kansas. The price tag for that is much higher, up to $1.5 billion over 30 years, mostly from tax revenue generated by the teams. Michael, a Moscow Remington poll shows people favor doing what it takes to keep the Chiefs and Royals. Do you?
Yeah. We have a case study of what happens to a city when you lose an NFL team or your identity. That's St. Louis. Look, the Royals, the Chiefs, they're no different than Anheuser-Busch, Ford, Boeing, Monsanto, any other company that's out there. These are incentives that are being used to keep these jobs and the intangibles that come with them. Further, I would argue that it makes sense for us to be passing this stuff because they are the identity of our states. And look at what we lost in St. Louis when we lost the Rams. It undoubtedly gutted us from a national perspective quite a bit. We don't need to see that happen to our little brother.
Do you support, the governor's a Republican, is this a Republican thing to do? Use taxpayer money to placate millionaire owners of sports teams?
Well, here's the reality. First of all, I don't believe that poll. I don't believe this is popular with voters, using taxpayer money like this. But the reality is Kansas put money on the table. And they said, you guys want a new stadium? Come on over. Here's what we'll do for you. So now the state of Missouri, and it's not going to impact the fans of Kansas City if they move to Kansas because they're just going to drive to the game and like they always have.
Right.
But it affects the revenue of the state. It's a much bigger impact on Missouri than it is on Kansas City regionally. And what the governor did here, I can't think of the last time that a stadium funding bill passed anywhere in the country, in the legislature. And the governor here, who is an incredible negotiator, who is very involved in going office to office, walking the halls of the Capitol, building those relationships with the General Assembly. What he did here is nothing short of remarkable. I'm amazed that they were able to get 19 votes in the state Senate, no filibuster. It's impressive.
Yeah, and our Mark Zinn from our Capitol Bureau there, one of his reports this week was no one's talking. They're all meeting behind closed doors. Deal cutting was going on, and the governor was making concessions and getting concessions, and he put these two deals together, I believe, the tornado relief for St. Louis. Hey, we'll get that for you, but we need to keep the stadiums on the other side of the state.
Well, and he had the lens of history to look at in his biggest city on what happens when you lose this stuff.
His hometown.
Look, I think we all understand the disgusting nature of giving money to billionaires and being forced into doing this. But unless every city in the country is going to universally disarm on this stuff, Missouri, St. Louis, and Kansas City aren't going to be the ones to draw the line. You have to be able to compete to keep these teams here.
One other thing of note. I can't remember the last time in recent history in Missouri where the General Assembly has passed a controversial bill with a bipartisan majority, because that's what happened. This is remarkable what the governor put together.
That's how government used to work all the time.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to these types of projects,
Make deals, yeah. Another of the governor's priorities, putting the St. Louis Police Department under control of a state board appointed by him, draws another lawsuit in St. Louis aimed at stopping it. A group called Arch City Defenders has filed suit on behalf of two community organizers. They claim that House Bill 495, establishing state control, which the governor signed into law months ago, is unconstitutional. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey calls the lawsuit frivolous. John, I suspect you agree. Explain to voters why it should be constitutional that the legislature can go in and undo something they approved back in 2012.
Because the city of St. Louis is a creature of the state of Missouri. The state of Missouri controls and governs. They ran that police board since the Civil War until 2012.
Right.
And here comes one of Michael's lefty groups out there with this. It is a frivolous lawsuit, and they're going to lose. And the governor's going to be appointing these board members within the next couple of months.
And this was essentially a law passed by city voters back in 2012, not a constitutional amendment.
Correct.
Then it would be different.
Correct.
Look, I don't know what you want me to tackle first here.
Well, let's just start. State control. Did the Arch City Defenders have a point? Should it be unconstitutional?
Sure,
when
the Arch City Defenders have a point, and they're going to do what you do when you lose, which is file a lawsuit and try to stop it. Why I think this case is unique is you had a governor who ran for governor saying this is exactly what I'm going to do. It had the support of the state of Missouri. This is what's going to be happening. This is unfortunate. Cities should have control of their own assets, but this should be no surprise. We had warnings for years after years where we turned our head.
And he won going away in November, right?
He did.
There's been a volatile new chapter in the saga of the St. Louis elected city sheriff, Alfred Montgomery. He was called before an aldermanic committee to explain issues plaguing him and his office, including his budget.
What you're saying is we need this money, trust us, and the problem is that it is very hard to trust you.
You guys are asking me to, at one point, stick to your core duties, And I'm trying my best to stick to my core duties at the same time while asking me, but we need you to do this. It doesn't make sense to me.
The sheriff's job is to transport prisoners back and forth from jail or even hospitals to court. Montgomery threatened to stop performing some of those duties, citing budget constraints. At the same time, he's expanding his duties to respond to things like tornado relief, for which he is not authorized, saying that if there's trouble, people need to know the sheriff is coming. Michael, Fox 2 News, has also learned his office has purchased a new $50,000 SUV for the sheriff's use during all this time.
For his drive home purposes. Take-home car, right?
What's going on here? Does he
is
have a
going to
leg
be-
to stand on?
No, this sheriff is going to be like Days of Our Lives. Every week it's going to continue to deliver. This has been happening since the day he came in. He doesn't understand the job. He has an outsized ego for what he's trying to do.
He's facing multiple investigations as well.
And yeah, he's facing these investigations and he's not implementing the job that he's supposed to be doing. I don't think his tenure will last long.
Does he know what the job is, do you
He
think?
doesn't know. Did you see the size of the badge on his lapel? I haven't seen a badge that big since Andy Taylor was walking around Mayberry. I mean, this guy is a comedy. It's ridiculous. You know, he's buying SUVs.
New uniforms, too.
Well, he's got 4 stripes on it. He must be important. You know, this is a joke and a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Well, and a continuing building of the narrative of what people are upset up with about city government and the nonsense and shenanigans that go on. This is indefensible.
Still to come on Hancock and Kelly. Up next, will Illinois Democrats find a tax they do not like? And Pritzker for president in 28, a top Democrat calls that a no-brainer.
To hear more, listen to the podcast. Just search for Hancock and Kelly.
Illinois lawmakers passed a record budget with massive tax hikes to fund it, more than $55 billion, with taxpayers on the hook for at least another $800 million. Republicans are certainly not happy about that.
Taxes crush people to the point where they want to leave our state or support the working men and women of Illinois. People are going to go packing, and my guess is they're going to send you guys packing.
This budget was focused from start to finish on the people of Illinois. Our deliberations required compromise and tough decisions, especially in these uncertain and turbulent times. But we got the job done for the future of our state and for the well-being of Illinoisans.
The key tax hikes are on sports betting, e-cigarettes, vapes, but also property taxes via cuts in a property tax relief program. Michael, Democrats were also pushing a $1.50 tax on all deliveries from DoorDash to Amazon. That one failed, but knowing Illinois, it'll likely surface again. Critics say Illinois is proof positive that the tax and spend classic Democrat liberalism is still alive. And
well, the voters are voting for the program.
they give the governor credit for not for owning up to it.
But they're voting for the programs that the governor is suggesting and the legislature is implementing. Now, I agree with them. They shouldn't do that 150 tax, whatever you said, to get the food delivered. But raising taxes on cigarettes and gaming to make sure that kids have health care and are getting properly educated, I'll be on that side for the Democrats anytime.
I was thinking this, John. Could there be any two neighboring states with such vastly different state governments than red Missouri and blue Illinois?
It's very different, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a great case study in why conservative government works and tax and spend doesn't. I guess if you put a delivery fee on Pritzker's DoorDash, they could maybe narrow that deficit somewhat. This is a state that is not well run, and it hasn't been well run. It's not fiscally solvent even. They've got trust fund issues, they got pension fund issues, they got budget balancing issues. It's a one-party rule. They got the House, the Senate, the governor. It's a mess.
How about that case study? You agree with that?
No, people,
Conservatives
they
work
double the size of us in Illinois. A lot of people want to be a part of that. In fact, most of the people in our country live in blue states.
Governor Pritzker says he'll announce next month whether he intends to seek a third term as governor, and pundits look to that announcement as a precursor to the eventual announcement that he's running for president in 2028. We asked Democrat Illinois U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth about Pritzker for prez in 28, and she is certainly on board.
Of course. I think that what we need in this country is, you know, a Midwestern candidate that would run for president. I think that is a no-brainer.
Michael, Pritz for Prez, a no-brainer for Democrats at 2028.
I don't know. I mean, I don't blame the United States Senator from Illinois saying that she thinks her governor could be president. I think we're a little over our skis right now as Democrats to be anticipating who's going to be running. We're not making an effective argument against currently what's happening from the other side. I think there's a long way to go, but there's no doubt Governor Pritzker will be in that convo.
If he wins the nomination, could he beat the Republican nominee, presumably J.D. Vance? I know a lot can change between now.
Oh, a lot, yeah. I agree with the no-brain part. But, I think he would be a disastrous national candidate. He's a progressive, liberal, left Democrat. That's precisely what got him beat the last time.
How did we not see that coming?
Yeah, right.
Should have saw that a mile away. Still to come on Hancock and Kelly, our quote of the week. Also, Republicans, including the Secretary of Defense, taking swipes at a gay pride icon, as well as Pride Month, June. June is Pride Month, and multiple Republicans want to turn back the Pride tide, including a local congresswoman and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Hegseth has ordered the United States Navy to strip the name from oiler ship, the USNS Harvey Milk. Milk was an icon of the gay rights movement in the 70s. He served in the Navy in the 50s. An Illinois Republican Congresswoman Mary Martin, whose district includes all or parts of 5 counties in the St. Louis area, has introduced a resolution in Congress to declare the month of June Family Month as opposed to Pride Month, which is in celebration of the LGBTQ community. Miller says she wants America to, quote, erase the lie of pride and instead honor God's timeless and perfect design. John, is this where the Republican Party is and should be when it comes to the LGBT community and the people who stand with them against discrimination against them?
So I got a couple of different thoughts. One is there is a cultural divide in this country. People that ascribe to a Judeo-Christian worldview do take umbrage at some of these things. I understand that. I think it is a dangerous policy, though, to get into the business of renaming and stripping names because it never ends. We're going to keep painting ships in this country, I guess, with each successive administration. And so I don't think that is helpful. Now, would I support honoring the nuclear family in this country? Yes. It's the stability that has built communities that has made this country great.
There's a lot of chatter out there. I mean, we saw the anniversary of D-Day in the last week, and people are saying, well, veterans only get a day, Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but Pride gets a month.
Well,
is that getting some traction?
Is this
Do you understand
really what
why?
everybody's all spun up over? Is that there's a month? I think it's Spaghetti Month as well. I mean, there's lots of things that get honored. It's unfortunate that we're seeing our Secretary of Defense spending his time ripping off names under this guise of unity when actually it's causing division. Does he not have other stuff he could be focused on? Do we not have conflicts around the world? It's just unfortunate to see this attack on those of us. And I do like John's message about Judeo-Christian, which is maybe people ought to start acting more Christ-like, which is to embrace others that are different than them.
With so many moving pieces in the orbit of President Trump every week, from the big, beautiful bill to mass deportations and dismantling of the Department of Education, it's tough to settle on just one topic. But this week, one jumps out and gives us our quote of the week. It's from former Trump advisor, billionaire Tesla founder Elon Musk. As the two former allies appear to be going through a nasty breakup, Musk has left his position in the Department of Government Efficiency, which he once boasted would save the United States trillions of dollars. He failed at that and now seems to be blaming the president for it and that big, beautiful bill, which will add trillions of dollars to the national debt. We settled on just one of many Trump-bashing quotes from Musk in recent days. Here it is. Without me, Trump would have lost the election, Dems would control the House, and Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. Such ingratitude. Nasty divorce here, Michael. Is that what we're witnessing?
Yeah, and that seems like it was written in the language of Donald Trump. Like if you went to AI and said, here's a statement I want to put out that sounds like Donald Trump, that was it. It's kind of like comic book, right? The most powerful man in the world and the world's richest man fighting. This is just a sad state, but this is what we signed up for when we voted in Donald Trump for another 4.
John?
Reminds me of when I took off after Keith Gentry in the 4th grade on the playground. We were going at it, Andy, and that's exactly what these two guys are doing. But that has potentially serious implications, because if Musk is going to engage against this budget bill, this reconciliation bill, with the threat of primary opposition for Republicans who vote for it, it's going to make navigating those waters in Congress all the more difficult.
Poor Keith. Final thoughts are next. First, Drone Fox over McKenna Day in South St. Louis last Saturday, in honor of our departed friend, longtime St. Louis radio sports host Brian McKenna, who truly lived his slogan, "Your vibe attracts your tribe." What a day. Final thought, Michael.
Congratulations to my sister Missy and her new husband Chris. Congratulations on your marriage. I got to witness Friday.
Awesome. John?
If it's Sunday in St. Louis, it's Hancock and Kelly. We'll see you next week.
He's always wanted to do that, right?
I have.